The Awful Truth by Michael Moore is a TV show that ran for 2 seasons in 1999 and 2000. It's a political comedy show, and as such, has a lot of elements to it that are of its time. For example, a lot of commentary on President Clinton, a lot of commentary on the 2000 presidential elections, things that, if you're my age, seem simultaneously so long ago and just yesterday, all at the same time. I'm not sure anyone who is not old enough to remember those years would have a lot of interest in this TV show, although it is interesting and maybe a little sad how much of it is still relevant today. So, for example, there's episodes on police shooting unarmed black people, still relevant today. There are several episodes on the healthcare industry and how insurance companies are denying health claims, still relevant today. There's episodes on the growing gap between the rich and the poor, which I think has only gotten worse since 1999, so definitely still relevant today. So, if you watch it or rewatch it now, you will find a lot of it still relevant, but you also find a lot of it a blast from the past. President Clinton, Newt Gingrich, George W. Bush, Alan Keyes, all of those figures who seem to be from a completely different era now are featured prominently, or at least satirized prominently on this TV show. I have actually now gone through this TV show 3 times. I saw it once shortly after it came out. I didn't actually watch it as it was coming out. I don't think I had access to cable at the time. But a few years after it came out, I rented the DVDs and watched them. I also saw them in 2013, saw the TV show in 2013 when I was living in Cambodia. And when in Cambodia you can get pirated DVDs very cheaply. So I bought the whole collection in one of the Cambodian DVD stores. And then just recently I've rewatched it on YouTube. Somebody's loaded up all of the episodes up on YouTube. Mostly good quality, and I've rewatched them all just now. The past couple weeks I've been rewatching them. So yeah, it's still holds up and is still pretty enjoyable to watch. It strikes me upon watching these episodes that Michael Moore really does political theater very well. Now, Michael Moore, throughout his life, has been involved in some controversies because he's been accused of distorting facts or oversimplifying facts. And this is something that he can be in danger of whenever he gets into political exposition. And the preeminent example I'm thinking of for this is his movie Fahrenheit 9/11, in which he was accused of misrepresenting the truth. And some of his other documentaries, he's been accused of this as well. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but it does sound to me from what I've read that he is guilty of some misrepresentations. So, to the extent that Michael Moore is involved in political exposition, explaining complex political issues, I think it's best to take him with a grain of salt. Listen to him, but also fact check him. Check some other sources. But to the extent that Michael Moore is just purely engaging in political theater, here you don't need to worry about fact-checking him. You can just enjoy the show, and he does this quite well. So a great example of this from The Awful Truth is he gets together a voice box choir, people who have lost their voice boxes because of smoking cigarettes. and have had to have those artificial voice boxes inserted, where they have to kind of talk through the box in their throat. And he gets them to sing Christmas carols outside of cigarette companies like Philip Morris. And so, of course, the security comes down and they say, "What are you doing? You don't have a permit to be here." And Michael Moore says, No, we're just here because we want to sing Christmas carols. We're just trying to do some Christmas caroling, just spread Christmas cheer. And he's conducting the choir. And then he says, they all lost their voices from smoking your cigarettes. And they just want to be here to give the Christmas cheer. I'm not doing a good job of recreating it, because you really need to see Michael Moore in action. He's so good at it. He's got such charisma, and I know there's a stereotype of him as being kind of a fat slob, and he is a little bit overweight, but he is just able to perfectly take control of the scene, and to do it in not an overbearing way, or at least he doesn't come off as overbearing, but just perfectly knows how to push people's buttons. And so that kind of political theater is what he's great at. Now, over the course of the 2 seasons, there's 11 episodes in the first season, 12 episodes in the second season. There are some pieces of comedy that work better than others. But when you watch the seasons through, of course, if there's a little bit that's not quite as funny as the rest of it, you just quickly forget about it. But the stuff that works really well, you remember it, so some of these bits have stuck in my mind through the years, and I remember them quite well, and it was interesting to see them again, but I remembered them pretty well from when I had seen them before. So some of my favorite bits in this show is a guy who got refused a job as a policeman because his IQ was too high. So this actually wasn't Michael Moore himself. It was one of the correspondents on the show, because there's a few other... Michael Moore's got a team. So some of this is done by the correspondents. He takes the policeman out drinking, and then he has him redo the IQ test where he's clanging cymbals and making distractions. And then they bring the IQ test back to the police department to see if the police department would agree to hire him. It's just a great bit. Another one of my favorite bits here is when Michael Moore was doing his movie, The Big One. He had visited some Manpower offices. Manpower is a temp agency. And they had gotten wind of what he was doing. So they sent out memos to all their staff about what to do if Michael Moore shows up. They called it the Michael Moore memo. Somebody leaked that memo to Michael Moore. So he has this memo, and he's going to various Manpower offices around the country to see how well their staff actually follow the Michael Moore memo. And he calls it... they make it into a mock game show. It's called Mind That Memo. And they give Manpower points for times that their employees perfectly follow the memo. And they give Michael Moore points for any time the employees slip up and don't follow the memo. The memo has things in it like, be polite, refuse to answer any questions, do not call the police, call headquarters, ask Michael Moore to leave politely. And so, he'll go through these offices, and he'll go through, and he's like, well, they did get me out very quickly. So we'll have to give them points for that. And we're very polite, so we're going to deduct a point for that. And it's quite funny. One of the best bits from the whole show is, I think, the very first episode, where there's a man who needs a liver transplant or he's going to die. And his health insurance is refusing to cover it. And he needs the liver transplant, I think, because of an issue with his diabetes. So Michael Moore gets the idea to have a funeral for the guy. You know, he's not dead yet, but they go to the health insurance company and they invite them to his funeral. The guy's explaining that he's going to die because he can't get the operation, and Michael Moore is showing them the casket that they're going to use. And of course, the poor guy that they're talking to has no clue what to say, and he's like, you know, I'm very sorry for this. And Michael Moore says, well, can you pay for the transplant? And he's like, well, I'll have to go check the details. And Michael Moore says, well, can you check right now? We'll wait. He says, no, I can't check them right now. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And Michael Moore said, which coffin do you like best? Do you like this one or this one? And the guy says, please leave. And Michael Moore's like, I think I like this coffin better. And, you know, in a way, it's very dark humor. A lot of the segments on this show are dark humor because they're verging on real life tragedies or injustices that Michael Moore is concerned about. But at the same time, it is funny to watch because of how brilliantly Michael Moore is just playing this poor guy who just doesn't know what to do. One of the criticisms I saw made of Roger and Me, one of Michael Moore's first documentaries, is that Michael Moore actually is more savvy than he lets on. He actually knows the proper channels to go through to get the interviews that he wants. But instead he just shows up unannounced with the camera crew and then acts surprised when they won't send down the CEO to talk to him or something like that. So it's a little bit of a manipulative thing he's doing in a lot of these segments. But as political theater, it just works so well. He also knows exactly how to generate publicity. After doing all this stuff and harassing the poor spokesperson and having the mock funeral outside of the health insurance company, the health insurance company reversed their decision and decided to pay for the guy's transplant. And so Michael Moore announces this at the end of the segment. He's like, a week later, they reversed their decision and they decided to pay for the guy's transplant. And of course, the crowd applauds. And, you know, these victories are always so selective and they're rather narrow. They're on a case-by-case basis. But, you know, if you're on the left, you know that we don't usually win, right? It's just kind of one defeat after another. So the fact that Michael Moore is actually able to deliver these wins is so cathartic. So you're like, oh, great, justice is served. And more often than not, he does actually win these cases that he sets out with. Not always. There are some segments in his show that he doesn't win, but he gets his way a lot. So it's fun and cathartic to watch in that respect. It would be interesting. The media landscape has changed a bit since 1999 and 2000. One thing I suspect that nowadays, especially with everybody having a phone with them everywhere they go because of smartphones, of course. Sorry, everyone having a camera with them everywhere they go because of smartphones. The corporations are probably a lot more savvy about dealing with people showing up unannounced and filming in their locations. I would imagine. Excuse me. I know there are people on YouTube who disapprove of drinking water during filming. My throat was dry, so I thought I had to drink something, but drank a little bit too much that time. But the other thing I wonder about, or you can't help but observe, is that a lot of what Michael Moore was doing on this show would later just be taken over by The Daily Show. And I think actually The Daily Show might have already been around in 1999, but wasn't. It was before the Jon Stewart era, certainly. So, the Daily Show, at least when I used to watch it during the Jon Stewart era, would have like about 8 minutes of news commentary. But then they would have a correspondent segment where they would send a correspondent out to do interviews. And the correspondent would interview somebody who had no idea they were part of a satirical news piece and had no idea that they were going to be satirized on this piece. And it's interesting. Michael Moore was doing this before they were doing this in his shows like... actually, The Awful Truth wasn't even his first TV show. TV Nation was his first TV show before The Awful Truth. But he had started doing this thing. I don't know who would have been doing it before Michael Moore. If you could make the argument that Michael Moore wasn't even the first person to do that. Somebody else before him was doing it. I don't know who that would be, but maybe you could make that argument. But the Daily Show definitely picked it up and made that their bit. And, they were doing it 4 nights a week for most of the year, right? Whereas Michael Moore's show, The Awful Truth, was just seasons of 11 episodes and 12 episodes. So not even nearly as prolific an output as The Daily Show would usually do. So I guess it's a pity that The Awful Truth only lasted for 2 seasons. But you can see where they are pioneering ground that The Daily Show would later take off on, and arguably, if not do it better, at least do it more prolifically. I'd say I'm not sure anyone who wasn't alive during 1999 or 2000 would have much interest in this show. But I think it is still worth checking out. You can find some episodes on YouTube. Check it out. It makes for interesting viewing. I'd recommend it.